And good morrow. Kind of in the middle of nowhere. Pan around. I don't think I don't think it re-exposes on the fly. Let me just have a look. There's a lot of light behind me. It's just because there's a sunrise. I've had a couple of videos where I've just left it to record this beautiful day. Oh, bright on me. I need sunglasses. All right, so I'm using a one of those smart watches. Well, I don't know if it's smart, but it certainly has a lot of mics and things on it. It can do a lot of cool stuff. So I've got a little screen that allows me to see the phone. Otherwise, I could use the little pinhole camera on the front, and I could record that way. But I prefer the better recording. Look at this beautiful location. I'll try and capture it again, or possibly for the bird song, not for my hair. You can see it's fairly early in the morning. I think I'd left a hair tie in the shower. Behind me is a farming property. Oh, it's a much better shower what we use out in the bus. So for me, this is as much as a proof of concept or a tech video to try out the features. We don't have fantastic reception out here, and I must admit the main reason I went down to the house, across to the house, was to make use of the so-called high-speed internet, and wasn't as high speed. I guess in the country they put up with different speeds, and it's the fastest option that they've got out here, and the farmer was kind of proud of it, and I thought, oh yeah, cool. And I came down, and it's like, yeah, I wouldn't, if my speed shaped to that, I'd be happy, but you get what you get. So it just turns out to be easy to do another video. Now, why make it a long lead-in? Well, again, proof of tech to me, and I'm only planning on uploading a video today. And it's gorgeous, right? All these birds around me. And I kind of need to relax a bit. I kind of need to take the pace down a bit, if you will. All right, so there's a heading for this video. So far, everyone will have spun on, all 7 people who've watched it. See, it's a weird video in terms of who it targets, because, hang on, my phone's heavy. It's hard to hold it out and up. All right, so, because Legion Go users are people who had the money, I guess, and could have upgraded, right? The demographic that all the big businesses use to make their money, right? Like, as of 7 or 8 years ago, a lot of the businesses would make things die through firmware, but it was generally only on the high-end products, because they're the people that they don't call your call centers. They're not a burden when the product breaks, right? Their time is too valuable to them. Cash is not as valuable to them as their time, because with time they can make more money. And a small outlay is an easy way to push past a problem. Now, my prediction was, many years ago, as a consumer ethics, was that eventually we'd see this pushed down into mid-tiers and lower tiers. Now, a Legion Go, when we look at the performance in it, it's the most expensive gaming piece of hardware on the planet. And you've got to have metrics here, you've got to have qualifiers on that statement. Obviously it isn't. There's boutique pieces out there, right? And yes, I'm aware of all the early generation, of the mainstream stuff, all the early generation stuff. There was really good platforms, and I'd love some ANAO stuff. Oh, the Flip. Oh, nearly bought the Flip, but then the Flip 2 was on its way, and I was like, I'll wait. And the Flip 2's got the OLED screen, and you need 32 gig of RAM if you're planning on using an external GPU, is my argument, because I would then use it as a total system. Oh, really wanted one. But a Legion Go was affordable. And so this is the demographic, right? Because anybody who had a Legion Go probably moved on to a Legion Go 2, because, you know, OLED, the option for 32 gig of RAM, maybe. So cashed up people have already moved on. Oh, there we go. Got to hold it up. Or I can go down, look up. Don't like that. I don't like looking down at people. I'd rather look across You can look down at me. Yeah, someone's dressed like this. Nobody's taking tech support or advice from someone looking like this. That's actually why I look like this. I closed my IT business a while ago. Back when I was clean cut, shaven. Oh look, I've shaven. I've let my beard grow many a time since I got out of IT. And you can actually have a beard in IT. If you're the professional in the room, you can turn up looking like whatever. People defer to you. So, gorgeous, this day around me. I love it. That's why I'm out here, the bird song. I did a 25 gig video yesterday showing the deprecations that have now been done to a Legion Go. And the reason it matters is that I can't upload it quickly. Normally I would. Normally I'd get the heading on it and that would be the proof. It would show all and I'll get onto that in a minute. All the ways in which it's been pulled back so that it underperforms versus the new hardware in the few areas it could have been showing up to be equal or better via firmware updates. But the world's gone that way. It's the expensive objects that are typically the ones associated with these firmware deprecations. And so this is a two-part video, arguably, or it's got 2 points. It's not 2 parts. My dialogue's going to be sewn through, and part of it is ethics, because not everyone has a Legion Go. Part of it is warning. I've bought a lot of Lenovo products, sadly, that have done that. Actually, the phone and the wristwatch I'm using are from companies that I would swear I would never buy from again. And out of necessity, when I was hitting the road to come out here to the country, my Lenovo phone was too unreliable. So I was at the mercy of whatever I could buy, and I do like to own my phones outright, so it gives me the freedom with my telcos. And I've probably got a couple of days left on my current plan after a couple of years of contract. So, and the company's just been under-servicing me, and their complaints department has just been hanging up on me, like literally. And it's just like, oh, you're not doing what you got to do, and I'm upset. I'd rather have the freedom to go. So, at the mercy, right? That's anyone who bought a Lenovo Legion Go is probably like, oh, I don't necessarily want it, but it's really well spec'd and second-hand, right? So a lot of people are probably buying them second-hand. And if you're doing that, you're not cashed up. You're not in a position where you can move on. And sadly, with firmware updates, you can't revert them. There are videos out there saying, oh, you can turn on this feature so you can revert them. But I watched the install process, and it was designed to catch people out. It looked like it did the firmware twice, so it caught the backup firmware as well. And on the first firmware update, and it didn't tell you it was doing a firmware update, it was doing a Windows driver update, it gets to the black screen, and then it takes a long time, to the point where most people would hold down a power button for 4 seconds, which means they would kill a firmware update, they'd break the hardware, right? There were aspects of it designed to break the hardware. And then it reboots briefly, and then it's doing the backup firmware, right? And then it puts a message on the screen saying, oh, don't turn the power off. You might break your machine. And you could argue the fact that they were clearly aware and clearly knew there was a due diligence to the end user to put that message up. The fact that they hadn't on the first firmware update that they did, and then, as I say, it reboots and then it catches your backup firmware as well, so that you absolutely can't revert. It was a very dirty update. So this video exists because that video was 25 gig, and my normal IT, I've got about 500 megabits a second, yep. Actually a lot more than that. I've pushed 800 megabits a second on the old Lenovo phone. It was an Ultra. I like to buy the Ultras. More aerials. More aerials can put less battery life, arguably better reception. But where I am right now, I can't shove that phone high enough to get reception. I could just get like a bar. I can get 2 megabit. No, I can get 18 megabit. I have peaked once at about 18 megabit. So 2 megabytes. 2 megabytes a second. A 25 gig video is a long upload. Why is it a 25 gig video? Well, watching the update at the start of this year, that is, there was an update start of 2025, and they robbed about 10% performance. And it was only in some areas, but I saw it. And didn't have any proof, right? And it's like, yeah, I can show you. These are videos I was benchmarking last week. These are videos I'm benchmarking now. But people aren't going to believe me. Certainly not looking like this. So yesterday I set out to make one video. to run through a bunch of benchmarks. Black Myth Wukong, Tomb Raider. I wanted to do Skyrim just for panning around, but in the background it had updated already, and it actually was robbing me of overlay controls. And I mean, I've got them up now. I get embarrassed on it. I'm not an extrovert. I don't like being on camera, but I kind of do these out of consumer the need, I would argue. So, you know, thanks for being here. Right, so a bunch of benchmarks. I mean, I was using Passmark mostly because I wanted to measure CPU performance, but the video confirms, right? I know what I'm doing. I've tuned the machine down to 6 cores. I've turned off the hyper-threading. It leaves a little bit more cache, arguably, per core. So some games that are cache needing to hit on the CPU punch well. Most games, people say, oh, games can be CPU bottlenecked. You know, only 6 cores. It's like, seriously, a Legion Go, and this gets back to what I'm saying about expensive hardware. A budget gaming laptop is probably going to outperform the particular chipsets in the gaming handhelds, right? It's the form factor. You're paying a lot of money for basically the lowest spec gaming around, and to rob 10% at the start, 10% performance at the start of the year when the Legion Go S came out, because it was a cut down budget chipset, arguably. Actually, it was. It's not to argue. I saw it once. Anyway, the Legion, the replacement to the equivalent tier, Legion Go 2, came out. And knowing what the 890M chipset, what they call the HX 370, I think is the platform, if you buy the good one. But knowing it's where it had targeted its improvements, which is really, it was going to be more power sipping down at the 15 watt mark. You were going to get longer battery life. It's got a bigger battery, which is going to lead to longer charge times. Right? I was a bit surprised to see they cut down the battery charge rate, even though I'd set it to low and it would take 55 watts. After the updates, it was 35 watts was the max it was taking. So everything was basically anything that the new one threatened, that a potential influencer on the internet might have been able to generate a video showing that the old one might be equal or outperform it. Certainly, if you're willing to put the thing on wall power and run it at the sorts of numbers that I run it at. Now, for high performance, I would generally have the small boost up at around 31 watt. The short, the boost that goes for about 20 seconds, I could generally set in the 28 watt zone. And then the long-term running profile at, depending what I was trying to do, generally 25, 26 watts. Now the reason that there would allow me to peak up at the 2400, 2500 megahertz clock speed, certainly on battery, certainly on wall. But on battery, the GPU chip would generally clock down to 2 gigahertz. Certainly after the first update, right? Firmware at the start of this year. It seemed to be it had dropped down just a little bit for the battery use, which again was something that at the time the budget Go S would have been possibly outpunching it at. So, having seen this in the past, wanting to run a long video, sorry, I'm all over the place, this wasn't planned. I wanted to catch it, and I did, right? I caught it screwing my thermal property, breaking basically my fan so that the thing was overheating, couldn't even pass Black Myth Wukong. But prior to that, I'd done my Passmark tests, and on DirectX 9, DirectX 10 titles, exactly as my predictions went. At the start of the video, I said, I'm going to make a hypothesis. You've got to do that in good science. And yeah, 10% across the board. It was just like, yep, we've cut it down that because that's what we're going to need to cut it down by. Because if you've got a performance profile tuning the upper power limit, the one that you can run when you're on wall power, where your video chip will clock up to 2700, but they never really hold that envelope for very long. That's where they'd target it, because the replacement systems are basically going to power sip, and because they've got a bigger battery and lower res screen. I mean, if your benchmarkers don't know what they're doing, they'll just come up with a lot of specs saying, oh, look, because it's all running at a lower res, right? They won't say that. Look at the frame rates we get. Look at how much it's better. It's like, no, it's going to be apples to apples, right? And so I knew all my games. I generally run them at 1920 by 1200 because that's the 16 to 10 ratio. And then I'd use the upscale to take it up to the 2560 by 1600 native res of the first Legion Go, which is its best feature, right? Like, Sure, I'd run a little bit lower frame rate, but that's all right because that sharpness, I mean, it's overkill. But as a technologist, that's what I was interested in. My desktop at home is more than capable of punching out 2560 by 1600. So remote streaming, and I did remote stream Hogwarts with all the ray tracing on, just as a proof of concept that I could do it. But I personally don't like that much Wi-Fi non-stop, constantly in my hand. I like to keep things simple if possible. So raw performance data was all I was trying to capture. And yesterday I sat down and I caught it out, and it's a disaster, right? It destroys all my resolutions. It screwed with all my controls in Skyrim. That was the weird thing. I hadn't even fired up the Legion Space and had to do its typical firmware update on the hand controllers. But the resolution on all the games couldn't kick on 144 Hz mode in the games, could at the desktop level. And it was just like, they've done everything they can to make this perform poorly and make people want to just move on from the platform. And it really was, not being able to choose, in the game you could choose the resolution, but then you'd go in and, for example, on Skyrim, it would cut into the screen and only show part of it. And all the buttons had been moved around, which was just weird. And it was just like, every single thing about this has been designed to make someone take this update and then go, you know what, I'll just get a new one. Now, yesterday was Cyber Monday. I had the opportunity of thinking about it, and obviously the Legion Go 2 had a big sale price on it. But based on ethics, I will never. And I'd had Lenovo laptops that, by firmware updates, had been taken out, like the battery just stopped charging, right, magically. And I've had a few Lenovo products. The Lenovo Ultra phone, it's like, oh yeah, take an update, you lose your NFC chip and your autofocus on your camera, right? The standard sorts of practices that people go, oh, out of convenience, right? They're features I use on the phone. I'll get another one. It's like, well, don't let them get away with it. But the problem is that the manufacturers have chosen the demographics that they break the equipment on, and because the rich people are the easiest ones to service. They're the ones that will just literally go, oh, our time just isn't worth fighting this. We'll just go, we'll just sort it out quickly with cash and get something else. But it's everyone else that's affected. And my experience of Lenovo Goes is that, I mean, I picked mine up pre-owned, second-hand. I did it because there was no way in the world I was buying a Lenovo product. But the ANAOs I wanted were too expensive. That was an ethical company. I knew they were going to look after me. I was going to get a long time out of it. And the nature of them being I was going to go the fold, or the flip as they call them, I think. And I love the fact that, like a Nintendo DS, I could just, like a clamshell design, I could close it and it would protect its screens. And it would have been a tool for the IT bag. That small little laptop that you sometimes need in field to get stuff done. And it was tough enough that it could just sit in the pocket without a case. And bonus, that if I ever wanted to use it for toying with, I could. And the 32 gig of RAM with an external GPU, I probably would have gotten rid of my home desktop machine. But it's neither here nor there. I didn't afford the one I wanted. I sacrificed. I bought the part that looked really well spec'd for the low-powered equipment that it is. And again, this comes back to the expense. These gaming handhelds are hyper expensive for what you get. It is the lowest powered video chip you can basically buy. And to rob 10% performance from it, not once but twice, I mean, that's criminal. This is class action lawsuit time. It really is. And I'm getting flagged. I mean, this video will not be promoted to anyone. And that's the weird stuff. That's kind of why I'm maybe doing this video, because now I'm wearing a smartwatch. All my tech went really weird after doing the video. And it was, I'd mentioned a bunch of companies. I'd mentioned a few things. And I don't know, like, I'm a bit disappointed. But I then went on to YouTube to look, okay, well, surely someone's covered this. Surely someone's covered the recent firmware updates for these platforms. And apparently not. And it's like, no, there's someone that's been posting videos for forever. I consistently get, 11 hours of watching each week. Consistently get 1,000 hits each week. But if I say one thing about a certain company, everything drops to nothing. And my videos span from cat massage to coffee making to everything. Like I'm not a YouTube channel worth watching, right? I'm into photography, I'm into tech, sure, but hi-fi is generally what my videos lead into, and the lack of consistency means I don't have a platform. Nobody's going to come watch me. But there's also no reason for everyone to drop off from watching me, because my videos stem back for years, and the lack of consistency on their topics, right? That none of them are flavour of the moment, and so I don't really have trends. Look, I have had some flavour of the moment once, and that's when I jump up to 2,000 watches in a month. But I'm not trying to build a channel. I'm about consumer ethics. I'm about sharing the information. And so that's what this video exists for. Look, it's really just to say, look, if you want the proof, it's going to take me a while to put the 25 gig one up. Right, it's because I'd probably record it at HDR or something. It is only high def, same as this one. But yeah, it went for a long time. And it goes to show all the benchmarks. It goes to show that if you take the new firmware updates, everything about the Legion Go will be destroyed, like from battery life to your ability to run your games in terms of setting the resolutions, using your controllers, and most importantly, the performance from the video chip and the thermal profiles. It screwed with my fan curves. It actually cut the fan mid-second run on Wukong, and the machine just hard-offed. And then I noticed that it was just about impossible to massage the fan profile back into running. And so I did. I clicked and clicked and clicked and got it on, and I was just running it at full power. But none of the numbers that I could previously run would run. And they would just lead to the machine. Thermal throttling and frame rates would generally be 45 lows, were becoming 19 and 20 lows. And this wasn't at the balls to the wall, wow, I want to run it at 31 watt peak and whatnot. This was the 28, 28, 20, 28, 27, 25 maybe profile. So your upper peak that's only for a few moments, 28, 27 for the 20-second boost, and 25 watt. And the reason I run that is that it basically holds the full performance of the video chip at about 2 gigahertz, a little bit over, maybe 2100, so that when you unplug and you go handheld mode, it'll stay peaked at 20 watt. Yeah, sure, it only runs for about an hour and 15 minutes. And previous performance profiles, I'd get Skyrim running maxed out. Again, 1920 by 1200, upscaling to 2560 by 1600, and I could run it for 2.5 hours. And sure, those numbers weren't the numbers I just quoted you, but I've learnt the platform. I know what I can do with it. And the competition at the 15 watt mark for the Legion Go versus the Legion Go 2, it's never going to be a competition. Legion Go 2 smashes it, right? The new chip is going to be power sipping in ways that the old one wasn't at that level. The lower res screen and the much larger battery means that it won't be hitting anywhere near as hard to run. The new ones will absolutely smash it out at that low power performance mark, which is handheld mode, which is fine. But for those of us that want to use them as a desktop replacement or actually use them as a serious gaming machine, plugged into USB and giving it a 45 watt feed from the wall, you can unlock up to 2700 megahertz. They say technically 2900 megahertz in the chipset, but yeah, you will see 2500 megahertz. You won't hold that. You might be able to hold 2400 megahertz with a fairly mild profile, so your fan isn't just running flat out, which you don't want because it doesn't exit the air as well as if you bring the fans down just a little bit. But everything about the system is just disgustingly handled. And instead of giving us, they didn't give us driver updates for a year. They made it so basically the machine was unusable. And then when they've deemed it absolutely end of life, they we'll give you an update. It's like, I've seen this one before. My Panasonic TV, I love Panasonic, but Disney took it out with a software update on the smart TV, and their software update firmware updated my OLED and made it so it was doing the deep cycle OLED pixel clean multiple times a day, right? And they did multiple things. They stopped me being able to feed out PCM audio. I guess the point of my issue is that lots of products that have gone beyond end of life get that firmware update. I've had top of the line soundbars taken out so that the family can't use them. They don't resume working the way they previously worked, but they would turn on to the last used input, etc. Right? So this stuff is all just normal in the modern world. I get it, right? Ethically, the phone brand I'm recording this on, many times going back for like more than 10 years, will firmware update to break intentionally, when the new product comes out, the things that you absolutely choose to use and need, just so it's uncomfortable enough to make you consider the new product, right? And when they made those phones that apparently kept blowing up, the statistics weren't, I think, any better or worse than any other phone in the history of the planet, but it was a flagship on a platform with a security level that's pretty solid, and the market didn't want so many phones to exist at that performance level that could do that. And so fake news was coming out, and Samsung had actually said, if another one goes boom, we'll pull these things. Anyway, fake video, fake news, I called it out. Someone getting on a plane in Washington saying that, oh yeah, this one went boom, but when they showed the box that it came in, it was a version 1, not a version 2. But they knew that Samsung was pantsed in the people's eye, and so Samsung had to respond by pulling them. But to buy back consumer loyalty, going back as far as the Note 4 phone, a phone that had lost its autofocus magically when the Series 5 had come out, all of a sudden got its autofocus back, right, via a firmware update, right? Like, they had to buy back the loyalty. And so these companies know what they're doing. They know how to move us forward. They know how much they can push without actually being seen as the instigator of the fight, right? They are pricks. Anyway, Lenovo Legion Go. I'm looking at you. Do not take a firmware update. Now, this is the worst time if this video gets promoted. If you share this with your friends, or if you let your other Legion Go users know, or if you are a Legion Go fan or a fan of handhelds, and you raise awareness on this, the solution is easy. Don't take the updates. Jump ship before the updates can be forced on you. Right? They are forced on you through Windows. If you jump over to Bazite, not only do you get 10 to 30% more performance, depending on your power profile and what you're doing, you avoid losing 10% performance. Times 2 if you haven't been taking all the firmware updates over on the PC side. That's a significant performance update. But also statistically, it's jumping ship out of the Windows camp, which is not what the market was, not what the market leaders apparently want right now. But they really want to sweep under the rug that the free operating system that takes like less than 10 minutes of your time to install and get up and running, and will never make you waste your time ever again. Ever again. You won't be pulling at your hair ever again. You'll have a stable platform you can rely on. Sounds pretty good to me. Anyway, there are alternatives, right? Lots of people do doom and gloom videos. No, there are alternatives. You've got to choose consumer ethical companies. You've got to back them. Sometimes their products won't be as good, apparently, by the spec sheet, certainly, as the big dogs who know how to manipulate and push you along, right? The big marketing teams, that they'll spend more on the marketing teams than they will on the ethics and looking after you as a customer. Yeah, they're the companies to move on from. Anyway, I just wanted to get something up. Hopefully this one short enough that I'll put my phone high up in the shed, right? High up in the shed. And I think I'll get internet speeds near equal to what I can get from the satellite. Alrighty, so this has been fun. Maybe. Thanks for giving me your time. You probably didn't. I'd like to think that this video had a couple of edits. That is, somebody came in and stole little bits of it and put it in their video, or watched it, and then they've got an actual channel with subscribers on a relevant topic for this, i.e. gaming handhelds, Legion Go lovers maybe. It's superlative hardware. It is. It's just a shame it, per usual, it's been taken out to force us to buy it again. Anyway, gotta love the new one. It does have an OLED screen. Big fan of OLED. It'd be good. It'd be good if I could trust them. I would have bought it yesterday when my old one broke. All right. Well wishes with you. You have a wonderful day.